No EastEnders cliffhanger here. Wrong Beale. The new manager of Queen's Park Rangers is Michael Beale. Come on, get in there. So thrilled with this appointment. It was doing the rounds for the last couple of days. I was wondering if it was actually going to happen. You're really hoping it is. I start watching all these interviews with him. You guys will know, I've spoken about Michael Beale at length in previous videos, talking about Rangers and the job he did there, talking about Aston Villa and the fact that he'd come in there with Steven Gerrard in terms of his management team and the impact that he was going to have there. And now we've pinched him. And I'm so pleased because this guy's the real Beale. The real deal. He's the real deal. And for us, you guys know, on the channel, I was fuming that Mark Warburton had lost his job. I do sort of stand by that. But what I also stand by is what I said in the video, which was, please don't spoil all this hard work. I really hope you know what you're doing here. And by signing this guy, we've got a guy who is at the forefront of what top management is right now in terms of a confidence, an ambition, a common sense approach, but one that at times leaves the players kind of bare and highlights the character of them. You know, it puts the onus on them, which is a ballsy thing to do. And I've been watching a lot of stuff on him over the years, and in the last day or so I've been having a look at some of the bits and pieces of him, and so I did want to talk about him as a manager. So QPR fans, what are we getting in terms of a guy who didn't play at the highest level but has got a really lovely CV, and at the age of 41 is, you know, a young manager, but one that is just so exciting. Really good point that Lee Hoos, and I said Les, Lee Hoos, please don't spoil all the good work that you've done. And it's been a while coming. And Amit Bhatia, our chairman, said this has perhaps been the most comprehensive search we've conducted during my time here. And these are all statements that can't be said if we get ourselves an underwhelming manager. But we haven't done that. We have a guy who has one of the best reputations on these shores. But it's also a guy, and I'll talk to you about his philosophy and his personality in just a second, but he's a guy who doesn't want boundaries for himself, has a huge amount of ambition, and actually the top line that's worth saying that would be somewhat scary for a QPR fan, but actually something that if he does well, we do well, right? But the thing is, he wants to manage the best clubs in the world. And he's not frightened to say that. He said that in interviews during his time at Rangers. Less than a year ago, he said, I want to manage Ajax. I'd love to manage Juventus. I'd love to manage, Barcelona. His sort of mentor, what he says is his lighthouse leader of sorts is Johan Cruyff. That's what he kind of looks at when he's trying to find an understanding of his own philosophy, which he has built up over the last 20 years of coaching. And he's got an amazing story as well. And do you know what I find really interesting is the fact that this is a guy. So I hope this isn't taken the wrong way. What I'm suggesting here is if you think about how football and sport in general, look at basketball in America, it's often been a sort of working class sport. And for people that don't have the opportunities that should be afforded to them in this world because of their financial background, they have a higher level of hunger, and grit and desire that makes them undeniable. And that often happens in football with working class players. Look at the amount of unbelievable players we have in the Premier League or playing for England from South London, for example, because they see that as a kind of a way out of their situation. And good luck to them, right? But they have deficiencies in terms of, the financial aspects of it. I've been thinking this for a while, and I think we're seeing it more and more and more. I think the same kind of idea works with management. So it's a different kind of wealth, right? So those players who have that wealth of talent and were able to make it, those are the guys that just seem that little bit flabby, a little bit entitled in terms of what they need to do to become a high quality manager, because you have to be so studious. And there are some managers that go out there and do it. Of course, there are. They're managing in the Premier League right now. Look at look at Tuchel, look at Jurgen Klopp, look at Arteta, look at Guardiola. In particular, someone like Arteta and Guardiola, I think, are interesting ones because both had really, really great careers. You're starting to see it now with Lampard and Gerrard have got that sort of tenacity, which is great. But they had it as a player to an unbelievable level. That's kind of what they were known for. But broadly speaking, I think there's a lot of people and a lot of names that were even linked with this job that the bulk of those names were players that didn't have the biggest career. And they're actually kind of known because they made coaching their life. And that's Michael Beale. And I think the sort of desire, the ambition that he has is coming kind of a couple of generations after players that have had careers but not the careers that they wanted. And, you look at the likes of Mourinho, Arsene Wenger to a point, VS Boas. There's so many of these kind of managers out there now. And these guys have real dedication and are forward thinking and not afraid to speak their mind. And that's another thing that he talks about, where he suggests that he's a stubborn manager, a stubborn guy. But broadly speaking, he has really pure thoughts on it. I do really feel like this guy is my spirit manager, if you know what I mean. Because there's a balance where he talks about management being feelings and relationships. Forget X's and O's. Forget tactics for a second. He's got a broader philosophy than that. He said you've got to be excited. The players have got to be excited, and you've got to fuel those players with what they need. He talks about super strengths, and you've got to think about what got you to this level. What got you to becoming a Premier League or Championship footballer. Those are the skills that, yes, you need to round off those skills with other elements. For example, he was talking about goal scorers. If you're great at scoring one-on-ones and you score 20 goals a season, if you can continue to be great at that and improve your heading and get 5 goals there, and you can improve your volleying, get 3 goals there, that's how you improve yourself. But you don't forget those super strengths. He worked with Trent Alexander-Arnold at Liverpool, and to give you a bit of a view on his career up to now, started management as a 21-year-old. Started coaching, as a 21-year-old, opening a soccer school, a Brazilian soccer school. Then got a job at Chelsea, made his way up through the ranks there, worked with the likes of Mason Mount, talks about working with Tammy Abraham, Tomori, that incredible collection of players that have made their way through. Then moved to Liverpool, worked with Trent Alexander-Arnold, amongst others, Harry Wilson as well. And obviously in both of those clubs, very high-end clubs, you're going to get a great understanding of development. And that's a huge thing that I thought the QPR hierarchy were focusing on. And I'm so pleased that they've continued down that road. He then was brave enough, and he said this actually in his career as well, is that I've never really had too much problems when it comes to sort of pitfalls and being out of the game, because I've jumped before I've been pushed a lot of the time. And that's due to his ambition of wanting to be a really high level person within football, within youth development, or as a manager himself. He goes to Sao Paulo as an assistant manager, working in a new country, something he's not afraid of, something where he is pleased that he's got that second language. He thinks it's important. He thinks it's important in terms of his management team as well, so that he can talk to different people. And he also looked and found out about different kind of cultures. And what's really interesting is that, so he has a few big elements of his philosophy. One is this idea of you versus yourself. So you versus you mentality. It's this idea that it's not for me to motivate you. You need to live your life the right way. And I like that hands-off approach. That hands-off approach often comes into his coaching as well, which he's got so many plaudits for, where he's very open. Right, he's open to the different ways you can win a football match, and also what good performance is as well. And he talks about transparency in terms of lots of conversations with people, with his players, but informal conversations as well. So it's not just like this big moment where you got to have a chat with them. It's constant. He also wants to break that down in terms of units of players. So I have 6 of the midfielders who used to be a winger. You'll have someone, Gary McAllister was focusing on another part of it. I think he was actually doing the midfielders. But then you've got someone doing the defence, and he was actually the on-field coach. That's the other thing to remember, is that Steven Gerrard gave this guy huge amounts of responsibility, so much so that in an interview I watched recently, he said that I don't think I could be an assistant manager again because of the delegation that Steven Gerrard provided. And he talks about the role and the kind of manager that you want to be. And he says he's an on-the-field coach. So he will have to be careful with the way that he allows his time because he needs to be able to talk to his team. And actually, that's part of his training sessions. A lot of the times he talks about the hard drive. And so the hard drive are certain technical aspects that you spend 15 minutes at the start of training working on. They're bespoke to your position, and you're working on those things to allow you to not think about them. They're just on the hard drive when you go out and play. And in that 15 minutes, with this job at Queen's Park Rangers, he will go into it and use that 15 minutes to let someone else do that work on the hard drives and have his moments in terms of talking to those players to give himself the time. But he will be an on-the-field coach. That's how he wants to do it. Steven Gerrard, very different, likes to have that distance, want to be beside the pitch, but kind of wants that distance as being a manager in that way. Nothing wrong with that at all, but it's actually probably led to him leaving Aston Villa because of the amount of opportunity that he's had, firstly at Rangers over the last few years, but now at Aston Villa and now at Queen's Park Rangers. He also talks about the difference and the learnings from Sao Paulo, where there was a different idea on train how you want to play. And that's an idea in Europe that you generally have. But he believes that there needs to be a playfulness and a rehearsal in training so that you can learn these new skills that you can then do off the cuff in a game. He's very clear on working the ball up the pitch and the different ways you can win a game. He's happy to go around the sides, through the middle, over the top, all these different ways. So he's, again, very open in terms of winning it. It's not this sort of 100% philosophy towards, possession, because it's not really important. But one thing that he does really like, which I think bodes well for QPR fans and for some of the personnel within the team, is that he says, and he said this a few times, he loves players that carry the ball. He was a winger, so I think that's part of it. But he loves players that can take other players out of the game, players that can drive with the ball, players that can work their way up through those lines, find those spaces. Think of someone like Ryan Kent, great example. And he loves players with action man hips. That's something he says a lot of the time. So, if you think of the most important players for Queen's Park Rangers, Ilias Chair, Chris Willock, two players that Michael Beale will absolutely love managing. And I'm just so pleased we've got him. I'm so pleased we've got him. I see a lot of similarities between him and Steve Cooper. Having spoken to Steve Cooper the other day, that interview's on the League of 72 if you're a Forest fan or you just want to know a little bit more about Steve Cooper, who's someone who was also at Liverpool at youth level. It's interesting that what he was talking about was, with the pressures of a playoff final, he wanted the focus to be on the fact that I don't want to add any pressure to you. And I just find it fascinating that Michael Beale has a sort of similar idea where he wants to strip back the kind of the pressure that's there. He wants players to feel good. He wants them to remember their strengths. And he wants to kind of get out of the way as well. He says another phrase quite often in an interview where he talks about sometimes you've got to let the ball roll. And what he means by that is just, let the players play and explore so that when it then comes to that moment where you need to find something else, there is that creativity. He's really, really strong in creativity in terms of his own session plans, but also what he wants from his players as well. He wants there to be that creativity from 36 yards out. It's up to you guys now. Go and express yourself. Find the space. Do what's good for you. There will be an understanding of how you want to win a game, and the training will be bespoke to that as time goes on. But again, what I really love is it's about these soft skills. And I think he's saying when you get the difference between when you've got these youngsters and you're trying to have a bit more patience in terms of developing their hard drive skills, when you get to the top level, they know who they are. So you need to talk to them. If you brought in a player who was fantastic over there, you need to talk to the player and go, what made you so great over there? Did you get the ball in certain positions? Did you have a manager who pushed you? Or did you have a manager who put, his arm around you? What do you need? And that's what he's thinking. That's what he's looking to do. He's looking to feed the soul of these players. Now, I'm obviously very excited, you can tell. And as I said, gutted that Mark Warburton left. He left the club in a really good position. And I'm so delighted that we've gone with an intelligent manager here. This is what it's about. I've said this numerous times on the channel. I think you have to trust the man when it is your manager. And that trust needs to come from knowing the guy is open, that the guy is ambitious, that the guy wants to develop himself and others, that the guy wants to be successful, that there's a common sense approach in terms of, he talks about what's a good performance. Yes, 5-0 and 70% possession is a good performance, but sometimes when you're away from home and it's not working out for you, a 1-0 victory when your back's against the walls, that's a really good performance as well. And so it's understanding that on the other side of it, there might be times where you have 70% possession, 25 shots, and the opposition get a goal. So it's just having that realistic approach. What's also great for us is in terms of bringing players in from Premier League clubs. I've always felt that teams that get up from the Championship, they bring in players on loan who are too good for that division, but people don't know just yet. And so you need to be sort of in the know when it comes to that. And Michael Beale, in terms of the contacts that he's got, Chelsea, Liverpool, Sao Paulo would be fun, wouldn't it? But Rangers, Aston Villa, there are players that he will, or people as well, that he'll be able to pick up the phone to and go, can we get this player off you? And that could be the difference for a squad and a club that doesn't have a crazy wage bill. Sometimes you need to utilise the fact that you are, have great contacts and a great reputation in the game. And through that, you can get these players maybe on that little bit of a cheaper side. And it's just amazing. I'm just so pleased. I just don't want to make sure I'm missing anything from the notes I was taking yesterday. That's the other thing. He wants players with transferable skills. He's not really bothered about systems. It's whatever's going to get you over the line. And I know I've just riffed there because I'm so excited. I was looking at this. And again, the hierarchy deserve the credit when it's due. I think they deserve the criticism with Warburton. Did they know that it was always going to be this way and you were going to get someone of the quality and the excitement that it will bring of Michael Beale? Maybe not. But at the very least, you've done due diligence. And that's what I want. That's what I want from my team and from my manager. This is a meticulous process that has yielded a very positive outcome. We're really excited to have Michael on board. A lot of credit must go to the recruitment department. There's a DNA of the club firmly in place, which we're grateful for Mark Warburton. You can't see it. Helping establish. Now it's about building on that, and Michael fits that very well in that respect. Yes, he does. Oh, I'm pleased. And I'm trying to keep calm, Mikey. I'm trying to keep calm, but it's going to be difficult. All I will say is that if you are a QPR fan, and be honest with yourself now, if you're a bit quick to go, oh, this guy doesn't know what he's doing, go. I'll put a couple of links into some really good podcasts and stuff that I watched recently. I was aware of this guy for a while from a seminar I watched on Coach's Voice, which is another really, really great app and YouTube channel as well. And a lot of people speak so highly of him from his time at Rangers. Steven Gerrard does as well. He said it was very clear that sooner or later this guy was going to go and be a manager. So when or if there is a stumbling block, if there are a few games where we're not getting the victories that we'd like, just bloody wait, okay? Because this guy is smart, confident, ambitious, super ambitious. He's got the right mentality. He's calm. He's a London guy. Don't jump on this thing about him being a Chelsea fan. The guy's a Chelsea fan. So is Ray Wilkins. So is John Hollins. So are numerous players. It's not something to get bogged down again. And it's so stupid if you do get bogged down in it, because this is a guy who could... Here's the best scenario, right? That Michael Beale does so well that he gets poached by someone else. And I think you'll have to kind of make your peace with that. What I would really hope that the club does, and I know I'm making him out to be this messiah, but I'm just so excited, because in terms of personnel, players, we can't splash the cash. So you need a manager who can find wins by just being a bit more modern, a bit more maybe empathetic than other coaches in the league, getting that great feeling, which again, if I was ever to go down that road of management, like I say, feelings and relationship, when he says that, I'm like, yes, because that is the starting point. That is the starting point. We've got a young team. He says so himself, Michael. We've got players that are at the right end of their careers that are only going to get better, and so that's something he's excited about. Just buzzing with this, absolutely buzzing. And I'm just, come on, son. Come on. Keep calm, everyone. This might take a minute, but if we get to a point where this guy gets plucked by a Premier League team, and I say that hopefully not in a first season with him, then that means he would have done well with us. And then we take the intel that he's going to provide this group And I hope it's one of those where, okay, yep, you're the director of football. Yes, you're the boss. But make sure we're watching what this guy's doing, because he's a smart man. And the sessions that he put on are known as being very, very impressive. And something's happening here, is what I'm trying to say. Okay? So relieved we've done this properly. Well done, Lee Hoos. Well done, Les Ferdinand. Come on, Queen's Park Rangers. Do something special. And now comes the quality signings. Yeah? Now comes the quality signings, please. Come on, you R's. See you next one.